Attention, everybody. The views and opinions expressed on the show are not necessarily those of Axe Ministry, Axe Media Group, and or their affiliate and subordinate ministries and or nonprofits. And as always, without any further to, it's the man with the plan to put gold in your hand, Tony Hammock and Asa. Take it away.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Matt. That was quite an intro. We
I
appreciate
do what I
it.
can.
We're very grateful.
I just like how I always get the high-pitched one. I'm honored.
That just lets everybody know that you're his son.
Very good.
Well, so we are glad to be back. I don't know if we were missed, but I will tell you that we weren't here last week. I think Matt and Jason missed us.
Yes, we did miss you.
Very good.
If you're not missed, you guys have been showing up every day.
So.
I think the hair's great.
Well, thank you.
It does make me feel better too. So.
They're commenting on the hair in the background, saying it makes them feel better.
The
So,
standard I was aiming for is gone now.
oh boy, I don't think this is something I want.
So we took 4 days and 3 nights, and we went up to Camdenton, Missouri, Lake of the Ozarks, and we stayed at the Old Kinderhook Resort, and we had a blast. If you haven't been to Old Kinderhook, you need to give it a try. The food was fantastic. The lodging was fantastic. I mean, everything we did for the most part was pretty cool. It rained on us quite a bit, but we still made it work and got some golf in and went to Ha Ha Tonka Park and walked down to the springs and had 316 steps back up the stairs to get to the car. And, we just tried to do is cram as much as we could into one 4-day period and everything. So, we're grateful that we're able to do that, especially under these conditions we have these days with COVID-19 and all this kind of stuff. So, but meanwhile, back at the farm, we got back and we looked at the prices of gold and silver, because remember, this show is about alternative assets. And for those of you that watch now for over a year, and I know there's thousands of you, we usually spend a lot of time on gold and silver. And I just jotted down some numbers before coming on the air. As of this morning, gold is up 14.07% in the last 30 days. And in the last year, so basically since we started the show last July, gold is up 39.15%.
Wow.
Which isn't bad. In fact, that's pretty darn good. I got a lot of people I know that if their stock portfolios were up 39.15%, they'd be doing the happy dance. But unfortunately, they're not. Now, silver's, and as we've been kind of saying, silver is kind of the silver lining in metal investing.
Oh, no.
In the last 30 days, silver's up 46.88%. Let's call it 47%. And here's the whopping one. In the last year, silver's up 64%.
Oh, my goodness.
And, there's a lot of folks that are a lot smarter than me and Asa that follow gold and silver that think that silver's still the play there, just because of the industrial demand for the metal, plus the investment demand and jewelry demand. I mean, there's just a lot of reasons why silver's popular.
Wow.
And in fact, let's look at the prices right off the bat here. Let's just see what's going on just before I get too far off into the weeds here. Let me see. Financial.
I'm starting to wish I was a little less cautious earlier and just went more heads down on my silver investment.
Yeah, see, I mean, at 9:06 this morning, which I think is right now, gold's up another $24.30 an ounce.
Oh my goodness.
It's at $2,044.70,
My word.
which, by the way, is an all-time high. And silver is up another 97 cents, and it's now up to $27.08 an ounce.
90, how many cents today?
Up another 97 cents.
97 cents just this morning?
Excuse me, yes, sir.
My word.
Yeah. Platinum's up another $30. It's up to $9.75. Palladium's up $55. All the metals are up. Palladium's up another $55. It's at $22.38 an ounce. And rhodium is up $100, and it's up to $9,050 an ounce. And those are what we consider the precious metals, and they're priced at ounces. If you're not familiar with our format and everything, the next metals I'll kind of go over just real quick are the base metals, and the prices I'm going to give are on the pound. So like copper is $2.94, nickel $6.48, aluminum 78 cents, zinc is $1.07, lead is 86 cents, and Ace's favorite, uranium, is $32.10 a pound.
I've never gotten off that NSA watch list if you don't keep telling him it's my favorite.
Well, we had some strange folks following us up in Camdenton. We didn't know what was going on. They had these unmarked cars, and everybody was in suits and ties, and you could tell they were packing. And every time Asa made a move, they were like. So
it's interesting. I hit the golf ball, and then they were right there on top of me.
Yeah, he got to where he was hitting the golf ball pretty good until he got a blister.
I did two blisters, both on both thumbs.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's impressive. I can hit it wrong 2 different ways.
So the Dow Jones Industrial Average so far this morning is up 267 points, and that makes it 27,095. So a lot of green on these charts this morning. And what's driving a lot of this is, well, actually there's several things driving it, but a lot of it's the economic data, the COVID data, and the political data, with this being an election year and stuff. Hopefully you got out to vote yesterday or last night before the polls closed. That's always an important thing. We went to vote, and then Asa realized he left his wallet at home. So Lorna and I got to vote, and then went home, and Asa had to circle back.
I did. I had to gun up there because I was running out of time. But I got it in. I got my ballot in.
Is that the first time you voted?
That is the first time I voted. It was almost not the first time I voted, so that would have been a little awkward. But no, yeah. Make sure you exercise your constitutional right. That was Missouri's primary yesterday, of course. But the big boy election, the one coming up on November 3rd, make sure you're registered for that one. I think the registration deadline is early in October for
I don't know.
Missouri. So if you're not registered, make sure that you make that happen.
I've only been voting for 400 years, so before the voting was even popular in the U.S.
Did you vote for Washington?
Yeah.
Or was George Washington a little not your speed?
No, yeah, George, yeah, he had all those posters in our yard, and we were swayed by his persistence.
Very good. I just can't get over the fact that silver, you said, again, is it 91 cents or 97 cents?
97.
My word. I did the calculation, and it's not exact, but it's about 3.7% increase, basically overnight in silver. If the stock market increases by 3.7% overnight, that is astronomical. Like, people are flipping their seats and stuff. I just cannot fathom the fact that your investment goes up by 3.7% overnight, and that's just, I think, pretty symbolic for just how explosive these metals have been recently. I mean, just the other day we were commenting that it was approaching, historic highs. What was that, like a week or two ago?
Yeah.
In fact, hang on a second. I have it marked in my calendar here. I remember taking a look at it. So I'll give you the exact date here in a second. Yeah, July 24th, which was about a week and a half ago, we were commenting, oh my goodness, it's approaching historic highs. And that was when it was almost $1,905, which was about the high for 2011. That was the historic high previously. And now it's just, exploded past that. As you said, it's like past $2,040 or $44 in just the past week and a half. So that's pretty incredible, and I think that speaks volumes to, what's going on in the world as well. And I think that it speaks well to the success of gold and silver in the long term, although, of course, as we say, past performance is not indicative of future performance. But I do think it's quite, lucrative for a lot of these people that have gotten into gold and silver early. And I know we're pretty happy right now that we got in when we did. And I'm a little, perturbed that I did not get in earlier because I was being a little too cautious, I think. But the amount I did get in is good.
Yeah, so, we've gone that far down that trail, so maybe it'd be wise to kind of mention, I mean, this is something we've talked about on this show quite a bit over the last year or so, year and a half. The whole psychology of investing, there's the FOMO, fear of missing out, and there's a lot of folks that are looking at gold and silver now, and they're thinking, I don't want to miss out, so they may be jumping in. And we've just had this big run up, so is it really prudent to be jumping in with everything you've got, at this point? And, that's the decision. I mean, I, for one, would say that, it might be prudent to do some dollar cost averaging. And there again, a topic we've talked about a lot. I mean, let's just say you've got, I don't know, let's just pull a number out of the air. Let's say you got $10,000 that you wanted to put into gold or silver. One school of thought would be, let's jump in because all the fundamentals are in place and it looks like it's going to continue to go higher. Another school of thought would be, let's be just a little bit more cautious and let's put in, like 1,000 this week and, 1,000 next week, or, and just kind of gradually put in. Now, the risk there is if it continues to go up, each additional purchase will be buying less silver at a higher price. But on the flip side, if there is a pullback, which there's a lot of folks now that are starting to almost wish for a pullback, just for there to be some consolidation, they call it, that third or fourth or fifth investment in this strategy, might be able to get those lower prices and stuff. I mean, the bottom line is you probably should have, anywhere from 10 to 15% of your portfolio in metals to provide some wealth insurance for your overall portfolio. And so, and we can get into those discussions. If you've got an advisor, give them a call, have this discussion. If you don't have an advisor, you can always give me a call at 417-755-0700. I've got a few more advisors now on the team and would be happy to, include them as far as folks that, you can use for a sounding board. We may have some of them on in future shows as guests and so forth. Let me think. I've got somebody in Nebraska now. I got somebody in Christian County. Got somebody, where else is there? There's some other place here. I'll think of it here in just a second. Arkansas. That just, the psychology of investing is you want to be somewhat cautious. Now, on the flip side, if you're like Asa was saying, I mean, we fortunately got in a little earlier, and there's some strategies there. Do you keep everything running and gunning, or at some point do you take some off the table? And one strategy I like is when you get to a double. In other words, let's say you put in $1,000 and now it's 2,000, or whatever the number is. It's all kind of relative, but one strategy is maybe you pull off what you put in. So like in that example, you take $1,000 out, and now the 1,000 that's still in, is you're playing with house money, and that way if there is a pullback or anything like that, it's not as severe. But there again, the risk is if you don't have all 100% of it in, and things continue to go up. So. That sounds like a lot of gobbledygook I'm saying there. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is it probably makes a lot of sense to have an advisor to talk to and to kind of go through these strategies so the pros and cons and the ups and downs and so forth. And, feel free to give us a shout. We'd be happy to step you through it. And we've had a lot of guests over the last year that are great. Ryan Long with National Gold Consultants, and Colleen Lee with 7K Metals, and Tony Hubbard. I mean, I can probably continue talking and think of another 6 or 7 folks we've had on from different gold resources that, are great sounding boards for strategies with gold and silver. Anyway, let's jump into the devotional from the stewardship class. And remember 2 weeks ago, actually, let me see. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I pulled another stewardship course out of this publication I use, and this one only had 3 classes. So this is the third and last one, and I can't even pronounce that top word there. What's that word right below devotional?
Oh, last time I mispronounced a word. My mother never let me hear the end of it, so I'm gonna avoid that one.
Oh, okay. And I
here, let me put it into a translator thingy. You can get started while I'm doing this. We don't have to wait on this, but by the end of the show, we'll know how that word's pronounced.
So in Genesis 14:17-20, we read that Abram is coming back from a battle in which God had given him the victory. He meets a priest named, oh, there's the word again, Melchizedek. Melchizedek? I bet Jim Wining or Dr. Paul know how to pronounce that.
Melchizedek. You were pretty close.
Melchizedek.
Yeah, Melchizedek.
Okay.
That was pretty close.
Okay, so he meets this priest named Melchizedek. The interesting thing about this priest is that he is also a king who brings bread and wine to Abram in celebration of the victory. With the bread and wine, he also gives Abram his blessing. Then, after the communion together and blessing, Abram gives Melchizedek a tenth, and in parentheses it says a tithe, of what he had gotten in the battle. Immediately after this, another king, the king of Sodom, tries to trick Abram. He tries to manipulate Abram in such a way that would make it look as if Sodom was the true benefactor of Abram's wealth. But because Abram had spent time in communion with
Melchizedek.
thank you, and had received the blessing of spiritual guidance and refreshment, he doesn't fall for the king of Sodom's trick. But in between the first battle and the second battle, Abram experienced communion, refreshment, and the opportunity to honor God with what he had. The lesson for us today in our contemporary culture runs deep in this biblical account. Jesus' role, which seated at the right hand of the Father, is to intercede for you and me as the high priest. His job is to intercede in our circumstances. It is his responsibility to place himself in the middle of our circumstances. For this reason, he points toward God being the center and focus of our own stewardship. And I don't know if you liked that one. I kind of did. I mean, this one was just 3 lessons, but they were all 3 pretty powerful. Plus, we got to know a new name to pronounce, Melchizedek.
Melchizedek.
And so for that, I'm grateful and everything. But I think back a couple weeks ago when one of the lessons we had spent a lot of time talking about, when it comes to tithing or any of these types of things that we can do as Christians, is that sometimes God likes to see how we handle the small stuff before he trusts us with the larger stuff. So even if you've got $2, maybe tithe 10% of that or something. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of an extreme example, but we all know of stories and stuff from the Bible of folks that shared a larger percentage of what they had, and they didn't have much as compared to some of the kings of the land and so forth. And obviously that,
like the widow that put in the copper coins, and then that was a greater gift to Jesus than it was the kings and people that gave buckets of gold.
well, let's face it. I mean, he knows what you got, and it's all his to begin with, and it's his in the end. So, it probably makes a lot of sense to share that. And, if you don't have a ministry that you tithe to, you might take a strong look at Acts Ministry and or some of the ministries under the umbrella of Acts Ministry. I mean, there's several good ones. Matt's left the building for the moment, but his dad has a great ministry for veterans. And I know there's probably at least half a dozen to a dozen others that, have different missions, so to speak, as far as what their ministry is all about. So obviously our ministry is to educate you on the benefits of God's money, or some people call it sound money, and why you should have some, no matter if it's one coin or, a vault full. And, that depends on you and your wherewithal and stuff. But I really do have a feeling that as the future unfolds, there will come a day where you will be happy that you have some gold and silver, because there's a lot of battles going on right now. We've got this thing going on with the U.S. dollar being the reserve currency of the world since 1944, when the United Nations leaders got together at Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, and made that decision. And because of that reserve status, You know, that's why we're able to be $26 trillion in debt. That's why we're able to, you know, still issue treasury bills and bonds and notes, and people in foreign countries are invested in them because they all know the U.S. dollar is the reserve currency of the world. Well, you know, there's a lot of factors going into play right now that, you know, I mean, maybe by the end of the year it won't be. And I got to tell you, I really dread the day that, and I hope it doesn't happen, but if you wake up some morning and the headlines are U.S. dollar is no longer the reserve currency of the world, there's going to be a lot of stuff happen that's not going to be pleasant. And gold and silver would be something that would get you through. So without trying to get too preachy and too high on a pedestal or soapbox or whatever analogy you want to use and so forth like that, you know, we're not doing this for, you know, our health. I mean, we're pretty healthy, and you know, we're trying to share some ideas and the gospel, so to speak, as far as what would make sense for a prudent person to do and stuff. And I hope that some of you are going to your advisors and talking this through and stuff. And, you know, don't make the mistake if you do go someplace else of having them talk you into, you know, an ETF or some kind of a paper claim on gold or silver. We're talking about bullion. I mean, you know, here's a Silver Eagle I got earlier this year. Now, this is the one of the state series. This is the Florida one. It's a U.S. Silver Eagle. That's 1 ounce of 0.9999% purity silver. And as you can see, it's encased in a hermetically sealed in a plastic case. And, you know, once I get all 50 of these, the collection will be, you know, quite handsome as far as its value and stuff. But, you know, this is it as compared to, you know, a certificate that says I'm entitled to this someday if I decide to cash it in. And I always like Ryan Long's analogy the best. And I know for those of you that tune in, you know, week in, week out and so forth, you've heard this before, but I think it's great. I mean, it makes sense. You know, the difference is this. If you own bullion, you'd be like the family getting ready to go on a cruise, and you look over and you see the name of the ship is the Titanic. And you're going, wait a minute, I remember, what, Titanic, that's
a familiar name.
Yeah, and you get to the top of the gangplank, and there's the concierge, and because you own bullion, gold and silver, you know, they literally put the life preserver over your head and on your shoulders and tell you to have a nice voyage and, you know, enjoy yourself. And you know you've got the life preserver right there. It's on you, you know, as compared to the next family that, you know, somebody talked them into just getting some certificates or an ETF or, you know, buying it through their indexed annuity or their variable annuity or their mutual fund or something. And, you know, those people, they get a certificate. And they're told, okay, now if we do encounter any problems, please take this certificate to the captain's office and redeem it for a life preserver. Now, I don't know about you, but I would much prefer to be the first family that just had the darn life preserver and didn't have to go find the captain, because if my memory serves me correct, at least in the movie, the captain got a little preoccupied with trying to save the ship, and actually, I think that guy actually went down with the ship. So, and rightfully so, because I'm sure it wouldn't have been pleasant once he got back to New York or wherever they took off from. So, yeah, that's my little thing. What do you have for us today, Asa?
Well, I actually thought it was pretty funny what you said a few days ago. So you notice we've been talking a lot about, you know, gold being God's money, and what Tony found out, or discovered, I should say, a few days ago as he was writing an email, is he was typing out gold, and he missed a letter.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, if you forget the letter L in gold, it turns into God. And he was just so amazed by that fact, as if, you know, it's something that we'd never really saw before. And I have to admit, I guess I had never really made the connection that gold was just, you know, one letter off from God. But I thought it was pretty funny how just...
I mean, really, it was like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. And here we've been talking about gold and silver for, you know, 42 years or something. I mean, it's just been like, I never thought of that. But, you know, Gold is mentioned in the Bible, something like 424 times, and the silver, I think, is mentioned something like 260 times. I mean, I may be off on those numbers by a few, but obviously, it's been around for 5,000 years, and it's gone through a lot of civilizations and societies and so forth. The Roman Empire, obviously, is no longer here. The Greeks, what was the one that started with an O?
Oh.
Ortheniums or something. What was the
Oh.
Persians? What were they?
Oh.
Think of the movie 300. What were those people?
Pretty sure those were Spartans.
Oh, Spartans. Well, they were okay. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, it's survived quite a bit, which leads me to one little thing, and then we're going to jump into a quick review presentation, is that, ever since Nixon took us off the gold currency, and that was August 15th, 1971. So today's the 5th. That's 10 days from now. The anniversary of that will be in 10 days. But ever since then, the U.S. dollar is a fiat currency. And if you look up fiat, basically it's a Latin term that means that it's not backed by a darn thing. And the only reason it has value is that your government says it does. And in history, there's been something like 268 fiat currencies. Right now, every currency in the world is a fiat currency. Nothing's backed by anything. But none of them have ever survived, like into perpetuity or something. I mean, the U.S. dollar is still around, the sterling, the franc, I mean, for the moment. But with everything that's going on, I mean, there's just a lot of speculation that may not, be too much longer and stuff. There's a lot of talk out there that there may be a reset. And we'll be curious to see how that unfolds. There's also a lot of talk out there now. I'm starting to pick up, a lot of chatter, let's call it, that we may have a jubilee. And if you're read the Bible and all that kind of stuff, how every 7 years the farmers were supposed to let their lands not have crops on them, and all this kind of stuff. And then every seventh year, they were supposed to forgive all debts and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not using probably the proper terminology, but that's the thought of a jubilee. So, we live in some very interesting times. And, if you want to, why don't you go through the presentation that I've got set up here.
Sure.
And then I'm going to look for that course we were talking about, since we got the phone plugged in, see if I can get that to work.
Absolutely. And were you thinking of the Ottoman Empire earlier?
Thank you.
Yes,
the
there we go.
Ottoman Empire. They're no longer around.
For shame. All right. So,
he's our gifted one.
no. It doesn't feel that way sometimes. Just this morning I was pulling on the push door. So anyway, we always like to start this presentation with a question, which is, are you working harder for more money to cover the basics? And I'd say almost everybody would answer yes to that question. I know I certainly would, and I know you certainly would, as we've talked about. Because higher costs and added financial pressures on families today are causing fear, uncertainty, and doubt on a large scale. This presentation was made in 2019, and little do they know just how well this is going to age. Clearly today is a very uncertain and volatile time. And there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear. I know that we're constantly checking the market, constantly checking the news for the next big thing that's going to happen, what's really going to shake, America's economic and political status. Well, we're not the only ones that, are fearful, and we're not the only ones that have, doubt in our finances. In fact, as of May 2017, only 44% of Americans said that they could not, or not only 44, only, what would that be? 56% of Americans said they could cover a $400 emergency expense without relying on credit cards, selling something, or borrowing the money if such an event arose. 44% of Americans in 2017 reported they could not cover a $400 emergency expense without relying on some sort of loan or some sort of credit cards. And that was as of May 2017, as I keep saying. Now it's 2020, and 2020 is an even more uncertain time. It's an even worse time in a lot of ways for the economy, and certainly politically it's quite a bit more volatile. And so I would be surprised if that number hadn't increased, and perhaps we're even closer to 50% of Americans could not cover that emergency expense, which is, pretty sad. $400 could come and go pretty quickly. You pop a tire on a nail while you're driving. That's easily $400 in a lot of cases. Really, that's kind of, doesn't speak well to the security of wealth that a lot of Americans have. The dollar has lost about 96% of its value since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, in fact. Obviously, when the Federal Reserve was created, a dollar was a dollar in 1913. But ever since then, it's continued to degrade. In 1933, the FDR's executive order made it illegal to hold gold coin, bullion, or certificates, which raised the purchasing power of the dollar just a little bit. And then in 1944, as we said, Bretton Woods established the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. And then in 1971, Nixon closed the gold window, which ended the Bretton Woods Agreement and began the modern-day fiat currency system. And all those were, landmarks along the way of the U.S. dollar taking a shaky downward turn towards its current status as, being worth about 5 cents on the dollar, which is roughly 96% of a degradation of its value in 2013. So, that's not only has the dollar continued to lose value, but other things have begun to continue to get more expensive. So, prices on things have increased dramatically, even since 2000 to 2018. In that 18-year span, things such as food have increased by about 50%. Food at home has increased by 43%, and food out has increased by 59%. And that was taken in 2018. Now it's 2020, where a lot of people are having to rely on getting their food delivered and getting food at home. And I can tell you that food has almost guaranteed to increase more in costs. In fact, I think, Tony, you were telling me that food at home had indeed increased quite a bit in percentage costs since 2018.
Yeah, well, think about it. I mean, especially... there's shortages of different things, and then if you want it delivered, there's, Instacart or Grubhub. I mean, it's getting ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Heat sources have increased by almost 100% at 99%. Car insurance has increased by 97% in costs. Water and sewer, 133%. College tuition, which is a hot topic for me, has increased by 151%. That means that in 2000, if you would have normally paid a $20,000 college tuition, in 2018 you'd be paying a $50,000 college tuition, or actually a little bit more than that because it's a 151% increase in costs. And I don't know about you, but that $20,000 tuition sounds a lot more, manageable than the $50,000. And finally, medical care, which is even more of a hot topic than any of the other subjects we brought up, had increased by 97% in costs between 2000 and 2018. So clearly, the dollar is becoming less valuable and more necessary. So it's, quite in this. All these numbers are as of 2018. So now we're in 2020, where things are even more unpredictable. So that's why we're making you the case for sound money, which sound money, if you've probably heard us say quite a bit on the show, that's just a fancy name for gold and silver. So we always say it's one of the secrets that the wealthy have used for ages to amass and protect their wealth. After all, you've probably noticed today, governments and financial institutions know the secret because they are the largest holders of gold in the world today. Not only are they the largest holders, but they continue to buy and buy it. I mean, we keep seeing banks around the world that are continuing to trying to get their hands on gold and silver, to the point where while we had the market shutdown, or not the market shutdown, the printing shutdown earlier in the year, we pretty quickly saw our silver resources depleted. There were no more silver eagles available until they began reprinting, and then they had the emergency production, as we talked about.
I know, yeah.
And so obviously, the dollars, we keep nailing this in the coffin, the dollar's been going down, but the real important thing to look at in conjunction with this is that gold and silver have become more valuable independent of this. So, we always like to use the example of increasing in value since 1965, because in 1965, 1 ounce of silver was $1. So it's, pretty simple numbers. So in 1965, a gallon of milk was $1, and therefore you could also buy a gallon of milk with 1 ounce of silver. In 2019, a gallon of milk, you wouldn't get very far with $1 to get a gallon of milk. In fact, if you wanted to buy a gallon of milk, I think today it's like $3.50 or so. So if you had 1 ounce of silver, on the other hand, you could buy 5.1 gallons of milk. That would cost you $20 normally. And that's a 410% increase in buying power for silver. That 1 ounce of silver would go from buying you a gallon of milk to 5.1 gallons of milk. And then if you want to give us the movie ticket example, which may not be as applicable to today's environment.
Yeah, I don't really like the movie ticket one since my favorite theater has been closed down for months. But the one I do like is I like the Mustang, the Ford Mustang, which is kind of apropos since yesterday the CEO of Ford Motor Company announced he's retiring in October. And everybody thinks they're somewhat disappointed with his performance for some reason. But even though the Ford F-150 is still the #1 selling vehicle, I think, in the world, or if it's not, it's pretty close. In '65, they came out with the Ford Mustang, and they were about $2,500. And, you could have gone into a dealership back then with $2,500 in cash and got one. Or since in '65, an ounce of silver was worth $1, you could have gone in with 25 ounces of silver. And, that would have got you the new car. You would have been the, hit of the school or whatever and all this kind of stuff. And, you fast forward to today, and if you went into a Ford dealership with $2,500 in cash, they'd probably laugh at you. I mean, you're definitely not driving out of there in a new car, let alone a new Ford Mustang. So that, is just not going to make things work. But if you walked in today with 2,500 ounces of silver, and remember, we just gave the price a minute ago, it was like over $27 an ounce. So do the math, 2,500 times $27, you'd have enough to buy 2 Mustangs. And I mean, that's just in, those amount of years and stuff. So I love that because it makes me realize, okay, the dollar's still a dollar and it doesn't buy near as much as it did in '65. And you got the same amount of silver and you can now buy not only 1, but 2 of, in this example, the Ford Mustangs. So, why don't we do this? I don't know if this is going to work, but let's take a gamble. Let's just see if this can work.
I like it.
Okay. Matt just entered the building. And are you going to do a PSA today? No. No PSA today. That's okay. We'll use every second you give us. 7K has this really neat buyer's certification program, and Asa and I were really planning on doing this back at AxeFest, and just because of logistics and equipment and configuration of rooms and all this kind of stuff, we didn't. And I thought it was a powerful part to the 7K program. And so I'm going to try and play this, at least a little bit of it here, just to give you kind of a flavor for what this buyer certification program is like. I wish we had it set up where you could see the video part of it, but basically this is Josh Anderson, I believe, doing the first part. So let me try this. Let's see. Nope. He's talking, Matt, and we're not hearing anything. We don't have to do it this week, so we can ad lib.
Is your volume up?
Yep.
Is it on silent by chance?
Media's up.
That's weird.
Hmm.
Channel's on. Yeah, channel's on.
Okay, hold on. Inside the little picture, there's something.
What you should do is starting next week, you should send them to me and I'll play them over the computer.
Okay. Well, we won't waste any more time on that. Like I said, we were kind of taking a risk there. We've had other folks call in from all over the country with this little cord plugged in my phone. And so, if you don't take risks now and then, you just don't have chances to fail. And we don't know what fun there is until you fail at something. So,
That's true. And
anyway.
I must have a lot of fun then. I know I'm allowed to fail at a lot of things.
So anyway, well, so let's segue into what's happening next. We're sitting here at August 5th. The silver and gold is on a run. We've got a lot of things going on with the weakness of the dollar. Now, keep in mind, if all of a sudden the dollar strengthens up, you will see gold and silver probably come down a little bit, because that's a little bit about what's happening here these last couple of weeks. But the other thing is that we're quickly getting through with the summer, and for someone who's followed the markets and stuff for 40 plus years like I have, I will tell you that it's very interesting. Sometimes in the summertime, at least for the stock market, there's not a lot of activity because a lot of folks, take the summer off and they go to the Hamptons and they just vacation. And then once we get past Labor Day, they head back to Wall Street, and then you start to see the volume pick up and the activity and so forth and so on and stuff. August is notorious for being one of the worst months for the stock market. So, we got that to look forward to. I mean, as Asa said, past performance is not indicative of future performance, but it's sure something to keep in mind. And so I know that Mr. Ace is excited because he soon will be heading back to college.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would love to hear is now having spent a summer helping me with the show and learning a few things about gold and silver, how is that going to affect your school year coming up?
Well, in a couple ways. So one, it's probably going to make me look at, funds and stuff a lot differently. Definitely look at, my finances, pay much more attention. The way I usually approach my finances is, especially with, paying for college tuition, is I get all my scholarships in order and stuff. And then after making sure the college tuition was paid for, I wouldn't really look at my bank account. I wouldn't really look at investments. But I've learned that, even though I'm young, that may even make it more important that I'm, paying attention to where my money's going. Just sitting in a bank account, it's not going to be doing anything. I worked all summer last summer, and this summer, of course. And the money that I made is basically going to waste if I'm letting it sit there until I have to use it to pay for stuff. Obviously, eventually, the reason I am doing that is because eventually I'm going to have to use it for things such as college tuition. But in the meantime, I can be actually putting it to use in investments such as gold and silver. More importantly, though, it's really helped me realize just how volatile, I suppose I should say, our economy can be. So I'm going to be more cautious as I'm moving into my college semester. And of course, politically and health-wise, I should say, with coronavirus, there's just a lot more things to be cautious about that I wasn't quite as aware of this last semester. So I think I'm going to, as I'm going back to school, be looking around, being aware, being careful, and trying my best to make every cent that I have count, because I think it's going to be important.
He didn't know I was going to ask that.
No, I really didn't.
Could you tell?
Wow. Threw me for a loop there. But
well, this may be his last show with us, so I don't know if we're going to do a big farewell, send off here in a minute. Matt's working feverishly on some confetti or something over there, so
I'm sure.
I see some, champagne and just all kinds of crazy party materials going. Oh, there he is. Confetti. So I don't know if Asa will be here next week. Will you be here next week?
Might be.
Might be. Okay. Well, when Asa leaves, we'll bring in Luke. You'll get a charge out of Luke, the 13-year-old. He turned 13 last Friday, and, we were fortunate because we had all the boys in town. Noah was in from Ohio with his wife, Leanna. Jonah was able to make an appearance, and of course Asa and Luke were there, and June, my mother-in-law, was there. I mean, we had a house full, and it was a nice little birthday party, for the 13th one and stuff. So we may have Mr. Luke come in and dazzle us with his razzle-dazzle and stuff like that. But, getting back to the serious thing, you've got interest rates at an all-time low. You've got a market that is precarious at best. You've got a presidential election year. You've got a government that is printing money faster than you can shake a stick at it. And we are now at 26, where is it?
What are you looking for? Silver?
We are at now $26.6 trillion in debt. That's a U.S. national debt as we speak. And then if you throw in, all the entitlement programs and stuff, it's more like about 88 trillion. So, we've just got a lot of things that are out there that are concerns. You've got a lot of information that's going to be reported here soon as we get further into the third quarter, second quarter results. And I think as that information gets reported and deciphered and all that kind of stuff, you're going to see a lot of decisions made. I mean, just this morning in the paper here locally, Wyndham has furloughed another 190 employees down in Branson. So it might be best to hunker down, wear your masks, buy some gold and silver. If you're already buying gold and silver, stay the course. And always feel welcome to check with us. You can text us, me at 417-755-0700. If you want to go to a website, you can go to 7kmetals.com/ACTS, ACTS, and you can get more information about 7K. If you want more information on National Gold Consultants, by all means call me, but you can go to nationalgoldconsultants.com. And I think I saw Matt give me a 3-minute sign about 5 minutes ago. How we doing?
You got 45 seconds.
45 seconds.
That's more time than we normally have.
Wow.
Do you want to give them your phone number again?
417-755-0700. And, I would say this, we like to always say thanks to Jim and Pam Whining, Dr. Paul Collins, Axe Media Group and Axe Ministry. And if you are a first-time viewer, if you don't have a home or you don't have a ministry that you tithe to and so forth, I would encourage you to tune in not only to our show next week, but all the other shows, and find the ministry that you feel the closest to, and they have a similar goal or objective and stuff, and get involved. Because when it comes right down to it, I think that's what's going to get a lot of us through these next few months or years, however it turns out, with this COVID-19 situation. So, signing off, Tony Hammock.
And Asa Scott.
And thank you for viewing. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate those of you that have joined and or have made inquiries. And we will talk to you next week. Thank you so much.
Take care.